Welcome again to Toyota Time with Timmy the Toolman. This is the second installment of trying to fix the slip yoke binding on a third generation 4Runner. I took it apart last time, greased it up really good with a multi-purpose moly grease, but I'm still getting the clunk or thump or bump, whatever you want to call it. Like it feels sometimes like you've been bumped by somebody in the rear bumper. And on the Toyota4runner.org website, somebody suggested a specific grease made by the Ford Motor Company. The Ford trucks also have the slip yoke problem on some of their models, and they made up this special slip yoke grease. It's called Ford XG-8. Ford XG-8. Here's a tube of it right here. It's Ford Motorcraft. And it doesn't actually say XG8 on the front here, but it's a Teflon based grease specifically made to reduce the friction in the slip yoke. And on the back you could kind of see right here where my thumb is, it says XG8. You could get it in this size tube, or you can get it in a pint tube. I just went to the dealership, Ford dealership, and bought it, but you can find it online too on Amazon and probably many other websites. So what I'm going to do is do the same thing I did before. I'm going to remove the slip yoke. This time I'm going to clean it up really good with this product. This is called White Lightning Clean Streak. It's a really good cleaner. I use it for working on my bicycles, cleaning up bearings and other parts. But I assume that it'll work great for this application too, to get the slip yoke really clean before I apply the new grease to it. So here we go. One thing before I get underneath the truck is I wanted to show you the factory service manual pages a little better. Again, it's PR-8 in this 2000 Toyota repair manual. And right here it shows the match marks. You make the match marks on the propeller shaft, which is also known as the drive shaft, and the differential flange, so you can get it back in the appropriate spot. And then it talks about the torque specs of those bolts, which is 54 foot-pounds. And then the same thing on the sleeve yoke where it meets the propeller shaft. You put match marks there too, so you get it all lined up right when you're ready to put it back together after you've greased it up. So I just wanted to show you that before I got under the truck and removed it. Okay, I'm back. I went underneath the truck. I took the slip yoke off again, and what you're looking at right now is looking down into the female part of the slip yoke. You can see, if my lighting's good enough, that I got quite a bit of grease in there. But my theory with the way these things are lubricated without taking the slip yoke off like I've just done is that here's the deal. You've got a Zerk fitting right at the back part of the slip yoke. So what you're relying on is you're relying on the male end to slide in, gather some grease on a compression like on a hard stop, and then bring it back up and over again. So I think the only people that are actually getting enough grease into the upper splines way up here, and the male end slides in right here, I think the only way they're getting enough grease in between these splines to lubricate it properly is if they're packing enough to where they're actually getting drive shaft movement to in order to when the suspension compresses, that they're dipping into that big blob of grease in the bottom and then bringing it back up. So it'd be nice if there is a way you could put a Zerk fitting up on the upper part of the propeller shaft, and then you can grease on two sides of it. But anyways, at least that's my theory, that's why people are having problems. And I think the bad thing about packing a bunch of grease in there is that now you're pushing all that pressure up against the transfer case, and I've heard that you could put pressure on a bearing or a seal on the transfer case output shaft. So that's why I really don't want to do that by just packing a ton of grease in there like other people have done. I want to try to get this thing lubricated properly without putting all that undue pressure. So I'm going to clean this thing up, and then I'll show you the re-greasing with the new grease. Okay, here's an example of how clean you could get a part with this clean streak stuff. You can look down in there. What I did is I got a rag with a long screwdriver, got the bulk of the grease out, and then once the bulk was out, I sprayed multiple applications of the clean streak, and it got it pretty darn clean. So I just got shipment at Amazon. And here's the 1 pound tub of the same lubricant. You can see the color of it. I didn't think I was going to get it in today, so that's why I bought the other tube at Ford. But again, you can get this at Amazon or other sellers. Okay, I'm going to lube this up and then reinstall it. Okay, so hopefully I got the right angle on this camera so you can see what I'm doing. But I put a very liberal amount of grease in there because I want to make sure it's lubricated good, but I didn't want to pack so much behind so it would cause pressure on the transfer case. So I got a lot in there. I'm going to get underneath the truck, and I'm using this acid brush or a flux brush like you use for soldering copper pipe to apply it. And so I'm going to go underneath and lubricate the male end and then put it back together. Okay, I'm ready to reassemble. This is the male end on the propeller shaft, and you can't really see it very well because it's dark. It's a dark piece of tape, but I got a match mark here and a match mark on the differential flange, and I also going to mate it up with the other pieces of tape that I have. It's going to release this bungee a little bit so I have a little more room to work to slide it on. So match mark there to the tape here. Oh, and I pulled the Zerk fitting too, so if there's any pressure or air pocket, it'll give it somewhere to go. It looks like it's probably about right. Yep, that's matching up. It's giving me a little bit of back pressure. And then I got a mark here, then a mark there. And there we go. I'm gonna get a bolt. And I'll get the rest of the bolts in and torque it up. Well, that's it. I've got the slip yoke back on, and I was able to wedge myself underneath the truck a little bit better to give myself better leverage with the torque wrench. So I was this time able to bring the torque up to 54 foot-pounds, which is what the factory service manual recommends. I'm gonna take it for a test drive, and I'll report back and let you guys know how well it worked. Hopefully it lasts for a long time. Another thing I'm probably gonna do is I'm going to use this 1 pound container. I'm gonna get a small grease gun and fill it up, some of it up with that in order to service the Zerk fitting. I'm hoping that I don't have to take the slip yoke off every time I want to lubricate it, but I just might have to in order to properly lubricate it the splines the best way, because I just don't believe with the Zerk fitting application it's going to get grease everywhere you need to get it in order to reduce the binding. That's it. Thank you for watching Toyota Time with Timmy the Toolman, and I will be back with more videos.